Hey there, this is Connie Wilson, your Smart Start lobbyist in Raleigh, and I am here with Matt Gross. He's the guy with the racetrack behind him right now. And many of you know Matt Gross already. He's over at DHHS. He's been such a blessing to us. He knows everything behind the scenes, and he's an integral part of the budget process and what's being negotiated between the House and Senate, and then also with the governor's office. So, how about this, Matt? Why don't you give a little intro about yourself? We have a lot of new EDs who are out there, new board members who may be viewing this video. Tell them about yourself, and then we'll get on to the dirty and the ugly of the legislative process. How's that?
Sure thing. Well, thank you for having me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Gross. I'm the Assistant Secretary of Government Affairs for DHHS. When I came back to North Carolina now 10 years ago, I was working at the North Carolina Partnership for Children. It was quite an introductory session. I will never forget walking around the General Assembly and introducing myself, and everybody was saying, "Oh, we love Smart Start. Too bad she'll be eliminated this year." And it was certainly a trial by fire year. It's where I got to know Connie, got to really get on her hunt. And what a long way we've all been able to come from since then, where, in 2011, we're kind of battling for survival, and then 2012 and 13, trying to avoid further cuts. And now here we are talking about how to get more money into the system, which has been great. One of the things that struck me when I first started working for Smart Start is anytime you meet somebody, they'd say, once you've done work for Governor Hunt, you never stop working for Governor Hunt. And lo and behold, whether I was at Smart Start or NC Child, or now here with DHHS, continue to do work for Smart Start. So that was certainly that proved to be the case.
Well, wonderful. Well, this session has been a marathon session. I tell people it's like watching paint dry for 8 or 9 months.
Yeah.
Nothing's moved fast, but it sounds like we're getting closer to the end now that we're entering the middle of September. Um, what are you hearing out there, and when do you think things will wrap up? And um, if you're, I hate to get you in trouble, but if you're willing to bet if there's going to be a veto or not, tell us. Give us the inside poop, Matt.
Well, I'll say you're certainly right about session dragging on. At the beginning of session, I asked everybody, well, when should I plan a vacation? People said, oh, August will be safe because we'll want to wrap up and take a month off before redistricting. So this picture you see behind me is when I was driving the track at Watkins Glen in August, which ended up being the week the House budget came out. So they were certainly several months behind the typical schedule. As far as where we are in the process, the HHS conferees, so you're looking at Representatives Potts, White, Baker, and Sasser, and then Senators Kravick, Bergen, and Perry. They finished their work up last week. They met Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday last week, presented their budget to the big appropriations chairs. I think there's some items that still need to work out, not necessarily in the early childhood space, but just in general, some items that need to work out amongst the big chairs. So the big appropriation chairs are meeting this week. Their goal, my understanding, is to hopefully have their negotiations done by the end of the week, with the hope of then doing something we've never seen before in the process, which is sharing the conference report with Governor Cooper before they make it public, with the hopes of negotiating with the governor on the front end. And I think that is really exciting. I know there's a big interest of like, oh, let's hurry up and get the budget done. And we want to get it done quickly. We want to get it done right. And the thing I'm encouraged about is I've never seen this much cooperation between the House, Senate, and governor's office, with the goal of working together to truly get a budget and not just get back into a veto showdown. Now, listen, can negotiations go awry? Of course they can. But I think what we've seen is there's been a better job at working together on compromise. We saw it really going back to last year. We negotiated a really big package on Medicaid transformation and some of the COVID work, and actually some money for early childhood, but Senate Bill 808. That was a big negotiation last session. So we kind of started, training the muscle then. Worked on it with the school reopening bill back in the spring. They're currently negotiating the energy bill, and the budget will be the next exercise. So I'm excited to see that there's really an interest in finding a budget this year rather than just getting into a veto showdown. So I remain optimistic we'll get a budget. Timing, therefore, there's some extra layers there. So I'm thinking best case, best case first week of October. I think more likely mid-October till we see something that unveils itself publicly.
Okay, no, that's actually very encouraging because a veto would drag everything on, and then a nightmare would be having mini budgets. I mean, that's nightmare material right now. So greatly encouraged that what that there's this collaboration that's going on. You mentioned that things weren't too controversial with early education, and I know a lot of this stuff is QT, but in general, and the House and Senate kind of approached art money a little bit differently, but a lot of ways the same way. I know there was 15 million for Smart Start, non-recurring in the Senate, which we appreciated. It was recurring on the House side, and the governor had it recurring in his budget. What's your basic take on that you feel comfortable you can share with us?
Well, I'll say we are certainly very supportive of that money being recurring. We know that the investments that you're making on the local level need to be ongoing investments, and doing a one-time influx of cash doesn't really move the needle like it needs to be. So we are strongly supportive of recurring. Of course, anything's better than nothing. I don't know how that part of the debate shook out just yet. I'm trying to get some of that intel. I know the conversation was really about whether to set the new precedent of using lottery dollars to make it recurring versus just using one-time money. I personally think the addition of lottery dollars isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's always a battle, even when we make our own budget. It's really difficult to find recurring general fund dollars, and most entities can't tap into something like the lottery. So the fact that Smart Start can, and I'll say Charlie Pruce, the governor's budget director, agrees that Smart Start could tap into lottery dollars. I think that's actually a positive thing because it's a new recurring funding stream that most other entities who are battling over money can't get their hands on. So I would personally like to see that show up. I don't know where they land up with the negotiations with that, but we'd certainly be supportive of it being recurring and coming from the lottery. The other thing I know you touched on is how to spend the ARPA money. So my understanding is, I believe they're going to take the House plan for that $500 million worth of CCDF ARPA money, which was the blend of some subsidy, but also a fair amount to go towards teacher pay and particularly teacher hiring bonuses, which we think is the right path forward. That will allow us to support the duties that are put on us in the Senate Bill 570. Also, we know with the CCDF funds for child care subsidy, once a child is on subsidy, you cannot kick that child off, which is great. That is what the policy should be. But if you therefore put an entire one-time pot to that one cause, you're going to hit a massive fiscal cliff in a few years. So we think the blend of some subsidy and some teacher hiring money is the right way to go with that. And my understanding is I think they're going to likely take the House position, which we'd be very supportive of.
Okay, well, that sounds wonderful. And when you say teacher pay, are you talking about wages or just bonus money, one-time bonus money?
So I know as we initially pitched it, the ARPA money, because it was one time, would be for like initial recruitment and hiring bonus money, with the goal of really getting to where wages could be funded with some recurring dollars. You know that wages is all about longevity and trying to have consistency in the classroom. I'm not overly optimistic that there'll be wages money on a recurring basis. I know there was a move in the House to carve some of it out of the block grant, but you'll still hit that funding cliff. I think wages will be interesting in the larger Leandro conversations.
Okay.
Listen, Leandro's it's a important but challenging topic. Legislators often are resistant to the court telling them how they need to spend their money. So I'm sort of careful on how I use Leandro, but there are obligations there that are important. And the good thing with our Leandro case is there's a big focus on what to do in the early childhood space. So whether that gets solved this session or not, it's not going away anytime soon. And I'll say we certainly recognize, and the judge recognizes, the importance of really beefing up funding and access all across early childhood. So I think that's going to remain front and center with the Leandro conversations going forward. So whether we get recurring wages this session or not, it doesn't mean that it's going to come off the table as a priority.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. This is an awesome update, Matt. We'll keep our network posted. If you ever need anything from us, you know how to get a hold of us. And thank you for all your help this year and in the years past. And I will see you down at the legislative building.
Well, I'll just make one last plug. The thing that makes Smart Start so unique and special and effective are all of you in the counties on the ground. I mean, the only way that I was ever successful in my role there was because of the relationships that you forged with legislators. It's so important because legislators hear pitches all the time, but when they can see the work in their community, see how it impacts the lives of people in their district, that's so impactful. So the work you do, if they ever get out of session, to schedule meetings and take folks around and educate them on the work, that always remains important. There's always a fair amount of turnover in the legislature, as you've seen. When I started, Justin Burr was really our savior on the House side, and then became Josh Dobson, and neither of them are there anymore. So it's always good to keep educating legislators. You never know who's going to be the next chair on our side of the in HHS. So that is one of the big strengths SmartStart has, not only from a service delivery standpoint, but also from a legislative engagement and advocacy standpoint. So keep up that work of engaging with your legislators. It really goes quite a long way when they're sitting in these rooms making tough decisions on Jones Street, because they have a face and a name behind that decision. It's not just a budget line item. So again, I can't stress enough how important that is for Smart Start and the value that all of you bring to the work that Connie and I do with the General Assembly.
Perfectly said, and appreciate that inspiration. And we'll be working on that in the interim. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.